Judge Jeanine Pirro is here. So is there any penalty for being weak?
Well, you know what I think is so amazing about this is that Jim Comey comes across as someone who is so wily and so calculating. He's a predator. He makes the decision that the president is going to lie to him before he even has his first meeting. And so he decides that he's going to start recording or memorizing what was said in their conversations. And then he gets to the point where he says, you know what, I'm going to leak this stuff now. Why is he so comfortable leaking? What is it about his history, his background as a prosecutor? And what I would want to know is he the leaker? Is he the guy who was so comfortable? And the answer to why he didn't leak it himself about the seagulls on the beach and my wife was hogwash. Yeah. It was a distraction. And you know what? He did the same thing just now with the senator. What he said basically was, Lordy, I hope there are tapes. Well, that doesn't answer the question as to why someone else was asked.
Does it matter who he leaked it to? Because Daniel Richmond isn't just a buddy. I've been talking about this.
This guy is a liberal guy. Look, he worked with him in the United States. He worked with him in the U.S. Attorney's office. He was the appellate attorney there. You develop a very close relationship, I know from being DA, with my appellate people, okay? You talk to them about serious issues. But the fact that he was so comfortable that he did this to a liberal professor, and it's linked to the... It tells me that this isn't the first time that the guy's leaked. It tells me he's a predator. He was looking to take Donald down, or the president down, excuse me, and what he wanted to do was preserve himself. He is an operator. He is part of the Washington elite.
Well, I tell you what, it's interesting, though. Why didn't he leak out, if he did do a bunch of leaking, and some people are saying that, why didn't he leak out the Loretta Lynch stuff last year, where she told him, you know, when he's talking about the criminal investigation into Hillary Clinton, she goes, don't call it an investigation. We'll call it a matter. She was influencing the campaign and the election.
I am outraged because this is where the investigations need to go. This is where Senate intel needs to focus right now. Loretta Lynch, we know, improperly met with Bill Clinton, the spouse of a target of an active criminal investigation. She never admitted that she did it until she was caught. She uses the language of the Clinton campaign, and then she doesn't really do anything other than to promote the theory that nothing is going on here.
We still don't know what that memo is, and it can only be told by people behind closed doors that he may have read. Now, what I think is underreported is the fact that he said, if I get this out to the New York Times, my hope is to get my side of the story out and launch a special counsel. Really? Yeah. Now all of a sudden a guy that's not going to be investigated, you're determined to get a special counsel? Is this about revenge?
It's clearly about revenge. This is a setup. This is a predator who is setting up the president, as opposed to saying, you know, Mr. President, I know you're new to government, and I know that this isn't something you're comfortable with, but, you know, we're really not supposed to be talking about this kind of thing. He could have helped him in a very simple way. He refused to do it.
He froze. He was so shocked that Mike Flynn's name was brought up.
Jim Comey is not afraid of anyone.
Not Captain Courage.
Yeah, well, you know what? I love the way he nuanced that one himself.
I've got a feeling you got plenty to talk about this weekend. We'll be watching.
Wait until my open this weekend.
All right.
With the country on the verge of a constitutional crisis and a level of hysteria not witnessed since Watergate, the greatest political hoax since Eve convinced Adam to eat that apple is being spun by Jim Comey in a conspiracy worthy of a Greek tragedy. And like all Greek tragedies, there's no good ending. He arrives all indignant before a Senate Intelligence Committee, calling the President of the United States a liar, saying he's the victim. He's been defamed. The President said the FBI was poorly run. Imagine. Were your feelings hurt, Jim? As if we didn't already know the FBI was in disarray after your repeated debacles with Hillary Clinton in the run-up to the presidential election. Poor Jim. You sound like a 2-year-old. Grow up. On second thought, don't. You're tall enough. But what do we know? Jim Comey doesn't much like Donald Trump, actually admitting he felt slightly nauseous that he might be responsible for Trump's win. He does something he's never done with other presidents, including that font of veracity, Barack Obama. He decides Donald Trump might lie to him, so he calculates to document every alleged word of their encounter, take it with him, and then leak it to the press. The only problem, the record is a federal record, and removing it, a clear violation of the Federal Records Act. Some foresight, though, huh? Thinking the president will lie to him. Comey's crystal ball at work. So he gives it to a friend to leak to the New York Times in order to get a special counsel to investigate the president. Curious. While he was head of the FBI, Trump was not under investigation. But once he's fired, humiliated, and an ex-employee, Comey decides Trump needs to be investigated. Jim, you had the power as the nation's chief law enforcement officer to investigate him, and you didn't. And now, a disgruntled ex-employee, you leak presidential conversations. Why? Your excuse? Once Donald Trump tweeted, "You better hope there are no tapes of your conversations," you say you had no choice but to defend yourself. Defend yourself? Your crystal ball must have been on overdrive, because what you defensively leaked in response to Trump tweet was published in the New York Times before Trump even tweeted. You were under oath, Jim. Are you sure you told the truth? So why not leak to the New York Times yourself?
I worried it would be like feeding seagulls at the beach if it was I who gave it to the media. So I asked my friend, make sure this gets out.
Really? Weren't you worried, though, that some reporter might out you? And, Jim, I'm having a real hard time believing this was your virgin attempt at leaking. Who even thinks like that, especially someone who is supposed to be the paradigm of virtue and ethics that you hold yourself out to be? And your hogwash about that shining city on a hill. You're the director of the FBI, acting like J. Edgar Hoover, surreptitiously leaking negative information about the president. Doesn't that send a message to the FBI that, hey, it's okay now to leak? You allow a New York Times article saying members of Trump's campaign had repeated contact with senior Russian intelligence officials to proliferate in spite of the fact you knew it wasn't true. You could have put truth to that lie, Jim, but you refused, allowing the country to suffer a trauma hyped to Watergate proportions. And if you didn't want to criticize the New York Times, why not at least surreptitiously leak to the Times that this was false? Or was your agenda to proliferate anti-Trump hate? And, Mr. America, one thing never leaked, that Donald Trump was not under investigation. Why refuse to say the president is not under investigation? You say because maybe one day he will be? That's your response? Maybe one day Martians will take a seat on the United States Supreme Court. Could it be, Jim, that being a team player is not in your DNA, that only center stage will do for you? And you're pretty damn wily when asked if an FBI agent has a duty to report a crime?
That's a good question. I don't know that there's a legal duty to report it. They certainly have a cultural, ethical duty to report it.
Are you kidding? Are you the same guy who lectured the country on a federal statute regarding Hillary Clinton? And now you're not sure about an issue central to your testimony? Like when you and your pal, now special counsel Mueller, had a showdown described as, quote, the single most extraordinary moment of the tumultuous Bush years? And obstruction of justice by the president? You and I both know, Jim, that if you believe that and don't report it, you're guilty of a felony.
I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing.
Not for you to say. Are you schizo? Are you the same guy who held a press conference to do what has never been done in the history of this country and announced to the world that no reasonable prosecutor would indict Hillary? By the way, Mr. America, how is it that you always seem to find yourself in the middle of a national crisis? Like that time you called in the FBI to rush you to John Ashcroft's hospital room to stop President Bush and save the nation. Jim, do you have illusions of grandeur? You spend a lot of time talking about your emotions.
It makes me mildly nauseous, so that gave me a queasy feeling. That's why I was so uneasy. I was so stunned. They were as shocked and troubled by it as I was. I was honestly concerned that he might lie. They confused me. It caused a whole lot of personal pain for me.
Was the job too much for you, Jim? Or was it straight politics? Why not just say, you know, Mr. President, I know you don't know the ways of Washington, but are you directing me to end an investigation? That way, no surreptitious leaking. The country wouldn't have to go through the trauma that's so much a part of your own personal drama. You might even have said, this is wrong, I can't do this. Like that time when Loretta Lynch asked you to lie to the country and not say Hillary was under investigation and instead use a parallel language the Clintons did. You did so, and you were dishonest with the American people. And even though you knew damn well Loretta Lynch was violating Justice Department ethics by even meeting the husband of a target of a long-standing active criminal investigation, you went along with her request to say that there was a Hillary Clinton matter and not an investigation. You knew it was wrong, but, quote, it wasn't a hill worth dying on. Man, are you dramatic. How many times were you pressured to do things during the Obama administration that weren't right? Why not report this? Why not surreptitiously leak? Why not ask for a special counselor for her? The truth? Jim, you're a political operative. You always have been. One who's addicted to drama, addicted to center stage. But like the main character in all Greek tragedies, your downfall is a consequence of a tragic flaw, a major weakness, your hubris. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter. That's my open. Hashtag Judge Jeanine.
He's disgruntled. It's crime now.
Look, there are real questions, as you pointed out, about Comey, what he did, what he said, what he thought. There are real questions about not what the impact on the election was, but was there collusion? We don't know. It's still an open question. If I can finish. And there is a real larger issue, Jeanine, of what the impact on the president's agenda will be. And if there is a sideshow, as David was saying before, and this continues as I believe it will be, the net losers will be the Republicans. The Democrats don't have an agenda. The only agenda is resist. And this helps resist.
What is their agenda?
Republicans just this week in the House repealed Dodd-Frank. The president talked about infrastructure. Kellyanne mentioned a number of things at the top. Oh, they don't have an agenda, but
their agenda is to destroy Donald Trump.
If Republicans continue to do things to make people economically and personally secure, and this election is about that message, we have a big day in 2018.
Okay, but see, here's the problem. If the Democrats are so focused on Russia, you know, because something happened. We now know there was no collusion with Donald Trump.
No, we don't know that.
Well, wait a minute. For 10 months. No, this isn't about Flynn.
Yes, it sure is.
What do you say to the fact that the president himself said, I'll testify?
Any good lawyer, Jeanine, and you would not let him testify. Mark Kasowitz is brilliant.
Doesn't that tell you that he's willing to do it?
I hope he does.
Jared Kushner is willing to do it.
I hope he does it. And as a lawyer, I hope he doesn't do it.
But then doesn't it tell you something that he's willing to do it?
I'm pleased he will. I would hope he doesn't.
And the Attorney General now. Now, what Jim Comey did a gut punch to Jeff Sessions and said,
he's in
wait a minute.
shape.
But that's a bunch of hogwash. You know why?
He's in perilous shape.
No.
The president
why is Jeff
avowed
Sessions,
that he's got his full confidence.
Why is Jeff Sessions willing to testify on Tuesday under oath?
Because he's got real issues to clear up about his meetings with the Russians, whether there was a third meeting, and I think he's trying to clear his name when he's really under a real cloud.
Why are these guys willing to testify if they're so bad?
They have nothing to hide. They're willing to testify.
Well, we'll see.
We need to get back to the agenda of the American people, which is keeping them economically and personally secure.
But David, real fast, doesn't it really aggravate you that we wasted all this time? We allowed the New York Times story to proliferate for months and months, that there was conversations between Russian intelligence and the team, when Comey knew it was a lie and he did nothing. That paradigm of honesty.
It sure can be frustrating, but not nearly as frustrating as seeing Americans suffer. And that's why the president, and that's why the Republican Congress need to get back to focusing on that and not worry about this sideshow.
This is politics, but we have a long way to go, Jeanine, and a lot more evidence to hear.
And I'm waiting for the Martians to sit on the Supreme Court.
And Jeanine, I'll be there with you. The Martians, they may show up.
Welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. You know, Hillary Clinton has just dug a hole for herself that now requires an indictment. Her response this past Sunday to Chris Wallace in an interview when he says that FBI Director Comey said none of the things Hillary told the American people were true says it all. Take a listen.
After a long investigation, FBI Director James Comey said none of those things that you told the American public were true.
Chris, that's not what I heard Director Comey say, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to, in my view, clarify. Director Comey said that my answers were truthful and what I've said is consistent with what I have told the American people.
So the Target says the FBI director has characterized her answers to the FBI as truthful. Seriously, Hillary? That's not what the director says. But let's hear it from the director himself.
Secretary Clinton said there was nothing marked classified on her emails either sent or received. Was that true?
That's not true.
Secretary Clinton said I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified material. Was that true?
There was classified material emailed.
Secretary Clinton said she used just one device. Was that true?
She used multiple devices during the 4 years of her term as Secretary of State.
Secretary Clinton said all work-related emails were returned to the State Department. Was that true?
No, we found work-related emails, thousands, that were not returned.
Secretary Clinton said neither she nor anyone else deleted work-related emails from her personal account. Was that true?
That's a harder one to answer. There's no doubt that there were work-related emails that were removed electronically from the email system.
Secretary Clinton said her lawyers read every one of the emails and were overly inclusive. Did her lawyers read the email content individually?
No.
So FBI Director Comey, under oath, swears before Congress that Hillary Clinton did not tell the truth. Hillary Clinton lied, not once, not twice, but more than 10 times. So when the Washington Post, known for its liberal leanings, gives Hillary Clinton 4 Pinocchios and PolitiFact rates it a pants-on-fire statement and factcheck.org gives it a false rating, you would think the woman would understand and recognize the error of her ways. You would think that the presidency demands a certain amount of integrity and honesty. George, I cannot tell a lie. Washington and Honest Abe Lincoln are spinning in their graves. So what does the liar-in-chief do now that she's been exposed? She doubles down on the lie and says in yet another interview, quote, as the FBI said, everything that I've said publicly has been consistent and truthful with what I've told them. And yesterday, the crescendo got so loud at the National Hispanic and Black Journalists Conference that she tripled down and said she may have short-circuited. Take a listen to this one.
Director Comey had said that my answers in my FBI interview were truthful. That's really the bottom line here. And I have said during the interview and in many other occasions over the past months that what I told the FBI, which he said was truthful, is consistent with what I have said publicly. So I may have short-circuited, and for that I will try to clarify, because I think Chris Wallace and I were probably talking past each other.
Hillary, it would have been so easy for you to say, I've already said I made a mistake, or I've learned my lesson. But no, not you. Folks, this is a woman who does not know what the truth is. And if her brain short circuits, is she telling us that she needs work done? Or that the work done was no good? Or that the work done didn't work? And they want to call Donald Trump unstable? At least the man says what he thinks and what he believes. You may not like it, but at least he's honest. Give me honest any day of the week. And this is far more serious. And I'll tell you why. Jim Comey swore that Hillary Clinton sent classified emails. Accordingly, she lied to us. He knew that she sent classified emails. So if the FBI knew that she sent classified emails, did they ask her whether she did? If they did, irrespective of her answer, they would have had to take her out in cuffs. If she said no, that would have been lying to the FBI. And if she said yes, that's admitting that she violated federal criminal statutes. If the FBI already knew she had sent classified information on her private server, and they did not ask her if she did, that means that they intentionally did not want to charge Hillary Clinton. Now, folks, Jim Comey was the man in charge who made the decision to prosecute Martha Stewart for lying to the FBI on a case that had nothing to do with national security. Hillary Clinton's case had everything to do with national security, and worse, everything to do with the future of this nation. And when Hillary Clinton says, "What I told the FBI, which Comey said was truthful, is consistent with what I have said publicly," she is telling us that she repeated the lie that she told us about not sending classified emails when she spoke to the FBI. That means that she lied to the FBI. She is clearly stating that what she told the FBI is what she told us. She lied to us, as per Comey, and now she's telling us she told the FBI the same lie. Jim Comey's hands are now tied. He cannot do the dance anymore about how there was no intent, or that he's not sure what negligence means, or that it was only recklessness or carelessness, or that the statute isn't clear, or that no reasonable prosecutor would go forward. Comey, the prosecutor who wasn't in that room in the interview, who didn't use the opportunity to size up a prospective defendant, who didn't use the opportunity to analyze her truthfulness and her body language, the man who didn't even speak to every one of the FBI agents in that room, who quickly made a determination that she did not have the intent, which was not even an element of the crime in the first place, is now caught between a rock and a hard place. Jim Comey, for all his truth-saying, has an obligation to his oath and the Constitution. He has an obligation to recognize what this woman has said, not once, not twice, but at least 10 times, and what he has said under oath. Jim, you're running with dogs, and you